Hello everyone. This is Mr. 13 Things. Coming at with just a general explanation of how, I guess, a relatively simplistic but workable explanation of how you can use the Khan Academy exercise framework to work with just a set of image files and sound files to build your own set of quizzes. And the reason why you would do that and not some other program like Moodle or D2L is twofold. One is to expose learners to this incredible open source engine, which is going to expand exponentially in terms of what's available over the next few years. Second reason is that you've got a rich data stream behind it, and so there's a lot of functionality built into the Khan Academy exercise framework, which is open source, for you to take advantage of knowing what answers people are getting, how many hints they're taking, how much they're putting into it, struggle, time that they're doing the work, just a plethora of information. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be looking unusually today. We're going to be looking at two things. I'll kind of go back and forth with these windows. And one is the basic directory structure here, which begins at something generally called Khan exercises, then has below it sets of subdirectories, which you can or cannot see here as you go back up. So I'm going to go back up. So the Khan exercise, as we look at here, has basically different subdirectories or subfolders, whatever you would call it. The important ones that we need to look at are going to see over time are going to be the utilities, where a lot of basic JavaScript files are stored. It's going to be useful later on when you're building. A big one we're going to take advantage of is images, and then dedicated subdirectories underneath the images file in order to store each individual, let's say, teacher, or it could be department, it could be class, sets of their questions. Though let's really remember that a lot of this information becomes not so much class-based as in chemistry class or math class, as much as something that we're going to use this system to hopefully keep students attached to the information that they might have learned going all the way back from the 4th or 5th grade. Best example being division by fractions. And exercises is where the HTML files are going to be stored. Right? But in all reality, you're going to be changing one line only in these HTML files, and you're going to be doing most of it through a set of image files, or a set of files in the images directory. You have, just for edification, something I'm not really sure of, but we'll look at later. Assistance for Khan Academy, it's a PDF file, and CSS and images underneath there, so don't get confused with the images file. We'll be using CSS as cascading style sheets and just information that they use for building stuff. And Git, we will talk about. You should learn about how open source projects are managed through the Git process, GitHub or whatever you're using, but the Git directory there may or may not be on your files. Going down below here, you'll see up at that Khan exercise, more or less the top of the tree, you then have Khan exercise.js, a JavaScript file, and then some jQuery files here with JavaScript behind them. These become very important as they turn out to be really one of the major engines of what's going on here. Okay, so what are we going to be going about doing? Well, essentially what all the files that we're going to look at are going to be a combination of, let's see if I can now write here, combination of basically one, an HTML file based on an exercise template. Now if you're using the basic image, and we're going to start with the concept of the basic image-based exercise, all that's going to change, right, if you're using the basic image-based exercises, you will only change two lines. That's all. Only two lines in your HTML file will be changed. We'll take a look at that. And one will be basically the title line, and the other one will be a data field. Now, over time, as you grab confidence and start to be truly wanting to share some of your great work with others and make it so it is actually does produce an infinite number of questions with testing the same set of skills but using different sets of numbers, you're going to be wanting to expand on this. But all we're going to do is only change 2 lines in the basic image-based exercise. You're going to only change 2 lines in the HTML file. And this is going to live, this HTML file is going to live in the exercises subdirectory. Exercises. So it's going to live in the exercises subdirectory. So we're going to take a look at it in a second. So I'm going to draw up right here. We have a first file, or the overall file if we do that, and this is called con-exercises. And underneath that, you've got a set of folders. Most importantly is going to be the, if I can undo that, edit, undo. Most important is going to be the exercises, right? So that's what we're going to work within that. And we're going to take a look at quick here, just so we make double check that we have exercises and nothing is capitalized. Realize it is, even though you're probably used to Windows where capitalization isn't key, it is a good idea to learn very quickly to keep the capitalization correct. So I'm going to see if I can do that here. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this out. I'm using again Smooth Draw, which is just another program freely available. And it's open source. It works only on Windows, I think, so that's its downside. However, exercises. All right, and under here we have exercises, and this is where your HTML file, I'll change the color on that, this is where your HTML file lives, right there. So this is one thing we're working on, right? So you're only going to change 2 lines in that file. And then as well, I'm going to go ahead and use the color tool here. As well, we then have a place where we are putting a directory called images. And underneath images, we're going to have a directory, for my case, MJP. And under that, you're going to have another directory for each one. You're going to have a directory for MJP01, MJP02, etc. So each exercise gets its own folder. Each developer, if you call yourselves that, each developer gets its own drawer, if you would. So this is how it ends up working, where this is from con, and then we add everything down below here. And you're going to see that the exercise key here, the key for the exercise is going to be the letter MJP, for instance, MJ Patak, and then MJP and maybe _01, MJP _02, MJP _03. And this becomes incredibly important, as we'll see in a second when we look at it. So let me go to, say, File, New. And I'm just going to talk about then, whoa, cool. All right, I'm going to talk about what happens in a folder. So in any particular folder, so we're now back up to con exercises. And down below that, we of course have our, go ahead and grab this. Okay, we have over here, right, our exercises. And under here you have your HTML file. But also under Khan exercises we have the images. And under images we have MJP, and under MJP we have MJP underscore 01, MJP underscore 02, etc. One per file, so one per exercise. And then what exists in one of these is a set of files. At a minimum, there is a file that is called question.png. That is the only thing that is required, is the question.png, which is going to be the question that comes up. However, you can then optionally, you can have hint underscore 01 dot png, hint underscore 02 dot png, etc. And then you can have hint underscore 01 dot mp3 and hint underscore 02 dot mp3. And so if you basically set up your directories so they have in these kind of directory, once again from Khan exercises to images to your own dedicated folder to a subfolder for each question with these files, question.png, and then optionally hint underscore 01.png, 02, 03, going up, I presume, as high as you want. I think I've kind of set it now at 5 for the maximum number of hints. And what you're going to want to do, if all things are, all things made equal, you want that PNG file to be on a transparent background. It doesn't have to be, but it should be. And very often you can do that in the GIMP. All right, so the setup then becomes that you have this standard structure, and we'll look at that in a second, and then you have over here in your exercise file, you have an HTML file where in effect you're change only 2 lines. Let's see if we can do that within the 15 minutes here. We're going to jump over here, and if we go down to images and then go to MJP and then go to 01, you can kind of get the idea. This is a base file you're going to keep around, but you get the, I did the file, the working file, if you would, that is a smooth draw file, and it could be a PNG file for an overall. But what you have then is the question.png and then hint 01, 02, 03, 04, etc. And what you then could have is the same thing with MP3s here. So that's the things you need. You need the question, and then you need the hint files as you lay them on top. And you'll see how that works as we go through the project. So if you lay this correctly out, they all should be basically the same size. We'll do that by going through that. And we can kind of do that in a second here. How does one go about making each of these hints, etc.? All kinds of different ways, but they should be on the same coordinate basis. So let's see if I can do that. I'm going to go through Smooth Draw and say File, Open. No, I'm not going to save that. I'm going into MJP03. I'm going to go to Khan Exercises. Let's see. Down, Khan Exercises, and then Exercises back. I'm looking through here. I'm going to go All Files, Exercises. No, I want to be in the Images. And then I want to be in the MJP down here. And then the 01. And I'm going to open that up and you can see what that looks like. So in this case, I'll kind of pull this over here. I'm going to turn on some layers on and off, and you can kind of get the idea of each hint file. So on layer 1, if I'll even turn layer, I've got a transparent background, right? On layer 1 I have the questions, and then different layers I have my hints. You're going to see there's different ways to go about doing that. But just by keeping each hint on a separate layer, you're pretty good. And how you go about then exporting is this. Once you've done this, and Smooth Draw is great for this, I have to say, if you're just working, not off of a photo, but just working on a screen. Smooth Draw does everything you need to do, and then you're using the same set of tools that a lot of other people will be doing. Khan Academy is not perfect. No one said it was, but they've now got 6 million unique visitors, users a month, at a $4 million investment. So it's hard to beat that when you're going with open source. So what you hear here is layer 1. The process then would be file, export layer image, and then you could kind of just put it where you want it. Remember, in that correct place, looking at it here, Khan exercises, and then images, and then your correct name, and then the subdirectory, and then you just export it. Usually you would have to type that in. And this can be automated. We're not going to do that. So that's the process that you go through. And finally, we'll look at what the line, the one line in the file. I'm going to see, even to close this, I'll leave this up, and I'm going to go and look at the one line in the file that one changes. I'm going to go to Notepad. I'm opening up a file, file open, going to all files, and an example of what the line looks like I'll show you right now. I'm going to zoom down through here. This is a lot of programming that you don't have to deal with, but the one line you're dealing with is, here we go, back up, is right here, this file here, and I'm going to explain how that works to finish this out. The first element of the list, you see this is mdtestdat. The first element of the list is basically the name of your file or your dedicated directory for you. The next one is the name of the subdirectory that includes the file question.png, etc. And the next ones are then, so you have a list that's got item 0, item 1, and item 2 is then a list of lists, if you would. The first one being, the first element being here, and it being the location or the name. That's going to be your first clickable space. And then a function here that describes the size of your picture, the size of the basically coordinate system on the Khan Academy framework. These will not be changing typically. Whether or not you're flipping things, this is not going to be changing. And then the location in the GIMP coordinate system or the picture coordinate system. So you've got one of these entries for each of your clickable items on the screen. That could be up to 20 or 30 if you really had a picture that you wanted to ask a lot of questions of. And then the final part of that, final element of that list is the correct answer. And with that, that is the one line you changed, so the mdtestdat. And the other line that you changed was literally only up at the top, and I won't be able to necessarily bring that down. Let's see if I can do that. Probably not. Something got screwed up with my... so up near the top there is a line that says title. And the title just gets changed to, in this case, which should be MJP016. The title should match that subdirectory of the question. So that's how one goes about, really, I'm not going to call it quickly, but the concept of how you can use this Khan Academy framework to make pretty much an infinite number of questions that you can store out. And it's one might say, not the best first, but a good early way to start to get some use out of Khan Academy exercise framework and build your confidence in your students' confidence in the fact that they can participate in this great venture, which is open source learning, so that you can free up class time for richer, more intense, more human experiences as opposed to some of the things that do occur in some maybe university classrooms or even K-12. Thanks for listening.